Hey guys, Miss P here. Unfortunately, my screencastify isn't working the best, so this is like the fourth time I've done this lesson, and it keeps not recording. So bear with me. All right. Today we are still going to work with radicals, but the only thing we're going to learn about is imaginary numbers. Now, this is why we have an imaginary number. Okay. Let's do example one. If we were to take the square root of a -2, all right, guys, there is no number, two numbers that are going to multiply to give you a negative anyway. Think about it. Um, 2 times 2 is 4. Well, what's -2 times -2? It's still 4. Any two numbers are going to give you a positive. It's impossible to multiply any two numbers and get a negative. So what we do is we call that imaginary number. All right? You know how we have like pi that represents 3.1418, yada yada yada. We have I, okay? And if you look at this little chart over here, I equals the square root of -1. All right, so if we were to take out an I, it takes out a negative because what times -1 gives you -2? 2, right? Isn't a -1 times a +2 a -2? So this would become I radical 2. All right, that's your answer. That's really all you can do. Um, so there you go. All right, I know this seems a little bit weird right now, but we're going to continue to work through this just so we kind of can, understand when to pull out an I, when to not pull out an I. Um, but for this week's lesson, you're only going to be worrying about I and I squared. I to the third and I to the fourth we'll get to next week. So we're still, guys, just working on radicals, so don't, nothing too crazy here. All right, let's try an example two. Let's go with radical -12. All right, guys, the first thing, anytime you see a square root of a negative, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take out an I. Okay? So we're taking out an I. Then we get radical 12. Right? That I pulled out that negative. Okay? But unlike 2, we can break down 12. So what we're going to do is we're going to take 12 and we're going to break it down. Guys, I usually like to use 2's if it's even. So 2 gives me 6, because 12 divided by 2 is 6. 6 divided by 2 is 3, and the only thing that goes into 3 is 3 because it's prime. We get that 1, we're done. So our pair is 2, that's going to come out, and what stays is a 3. All right, now how we write this is think about variables. All right, if you have a 2 and an a, we say it as 2a, right? We're not going to say a2. So what happens is our 2 is going to come first, then we put our I. We still have to bring that down, okay? We took out that 2, we're bringing down that I, and left inside the house is a 3. 2I radical 3. How are we feeling? So guys, really the only difference is we're just taking out an I to make it positive and then still breaking it down like we have been these past few weeks. All right? So don't freak out too much. Let's try another one. Example 3. Okay. Let's try the square root of -44. All right, first thing you do, anytime you see a negative, you take out your I. This becomes a positive 44. All right, now we're going to break down 44. It's even, so I'm going to divide by 2. 44 divided by 2 is 22. 22 is also even, so I'm going to divide by 2, which gives me 11. 11's prime, so the only thing that goes into 11 is 11, which gives me a 1 after. So my group that I'm taking out is a pair of 2's, and what's staying is an 11. All right, so how we write our answer? 2, bring down your I, radical, what's left over? That 11, done. Not too bad, right? Not terrible. No one's freaking out yet. The only thing we did is now it's negative, so we take out a 9. Hee. All right. Now we're going to multiply. What? What do you mean? No, you guys got this. Okay. So, example 4. We are going to do the square root of negative 5 times the square root of negative 15. All right, guys, so we know the first thing we do is we always pull out our i's. So this becomes I radical 5 times I radical 15, right? The I made this positive. The I made this positive. Now we're going to multiply. But guys, we're not just multiplying these by each other. We also have to multiply our i's by each other. So I times I is I squared. And then what's 5 times 15? 75. So guys, this right here is what we're going to break down. Okay? So let's break down 75. It ends in a 5. I'm going to take out a 5. 75 divided by 5 gives me 15. Divide that by 5, which gives me 3. 3 is prime, so the only thing that goes into 3 is 3. That is my match. That's coming out. This is staying in. All right, but there's one thing, guys. This is I squared. Okay? I squared actually equals negative 1. Okay? So we'll just rewrite this. The 5 came out, right? That 5 came out. We have an I squared, radical, a 3 is left inside. So now what's happening is we know that I squared equals negative 1. Because if I equals the square root of negative 1, what's the square root of negative 1 times the square root of negative 1? Negative 1. So what happens is this is going to become 5 times I squared equals negative 1. So negative 1 radical 3. What's 5 times negative 1? Negative 5. Bring down your radical 3. That's your answer. Okay, guys? That's as hard as it's going to get. All right? Now, that's only if you take out an I from each. I'm going to show you an example where we're only taking out one I next. Okay? So let's try example 5. All right, let's do radical 2 times radical negative 12. All right? Guys, there's nothing to pull out of square root of 2. All right? Square root of 2 is still square root of 2. Times, we have to pull out an I for this, then radical 12. Let's multiply them together. All right? There's nothing in front of here. It's just like an invisible 1. So we would get I, because there's only what? One of them. Then radical 12 times 2 is 24. So this is what we need to break down. I radical 24. All right, so let's break down 24. Even, I like to use 2's. 12 divided by 2 is, 24 divided by 2 is 12. 12 is also even. I'm going to do another 2, which gives me 6. 6 is also even, so I'm going to do a 2, which gives me 3. The only thing that goes into 3 is 3 because it's prime. So this is my match. This is what stays in. Okay? So I'm pulling out a 2. Right? This comes out. This I comes down. And then I do square root. A 2 and a 3 are left inside. If we multiply those together, they equal 6. 2 times 3 is 6. This is your answer. All right, so anytime you have two radicals and one of them's negative, you're only going to bring down a I. Okay, you're not going to get an I squared. Okay, that only happens if both of these are negative. All right, if only one's negative, you're going to end up with only I to the first power. All right. So let's try one more. Y Example 6. All right, we're going to do radical negative 10 times radical negative 3. All right, first thing, guys, first things. Always pull out your eyes, okay? So I radical 10 times I radical 3. So I times I is I squared, and 10 times 3 is 30. So what we're breaking down is I squared radical 30. All right, so we're going to break down 30. It's even. I'm going to use a 2. 30 divided by 2 is 15. It ends in a 5. I'm going to use a 5. 15 divided by 5 is 3. The only thing that goes into 3 is 3, which gives me 1 left over. Guys, we have no matches. 2, 5, and a 3. None of them match. They're all different numbers. That means 30 can't be broken down. So the square root of 30 is going to stay the square root of 30 because there's no pairs to take out. All right, but what can we do with I squared? We know I squared equals negative 1. So this is going to become, right, we have I squared negative 30. So the I squared becomes a negative 1, and your radical 30 stays because there's nothing to take out. So your answer is negative 1 radical 30, or you could write it as negative radical 30, right? Because that 1 could be invisible. Either way works. All right, guys, that's the lesson for this week. Hope you guys are doing good. Hope you guys are understanding this. Just, I guess the biggest thing is, guys, always remember to pull out your eye, because if you didn't pull out your eyes here, what's negative 10 times a negative 3? It's a positive 30. Okay? So you would be breaking down 30, and you would get radical 30 without the negative in the front. That's a completely different answer. Okay? You have to take those eyes out, or it won't work. Okay? That's about it for this week. Hope you guys are doing well. And that's about it. Have fun, y'all. He. Hope you're enjoying your week and the sun and all that beautifulness.